Now that The Walking Dead is officially part of Magic the Gathering, let's see if the former pizza delivery driver Glenn can deliver you a victory. What is up, Commander players? My name is Matt and you're watching Top Commander. This is not a rant video. Let's go ahead and get that out of the way. This is an actual deck tech. Sales floor has been open to purchase the Walking Dead Secret Lair. They are all new legendary creatures that are going to be legal in Commander. The Rules Committee has already stated that they are not going to be putting them on the ban list. So, for anybody looking for a rant video on this is not what you're looking for. Go ahead and click away now. But if you are wanting to watch this video to find out an idea for building a commander deck based around any of these Walking Dead secret lairs, the next few videos that I'm going to be releasing are going to be based on those. But with that out of the way, if you wish to support this channel, be sure to like, share, and subscribe as always. And if you wish to support this channel directly, be sure to visit patreon.com/topcommander. But now that all of that's been said, let's go ahead and take a look at one of the new legendary creatures from the Walking Dead Secret Lair. First off, we're going to look at Glenn, the Voice of Calm. One generic, a white and a blue for a 1/3 legendary creature, human advisor. He has Skulk, which this creature cannot be blocked by creatures with greater power. And whenever Glenn deals combat damage to a player, draw cards equal to his power. Now, I do like the idea of Skulk being on this creature, but however, if you want to maximize what he's able to do, you kind of need to increase his power to be able to draw more than just one card. There's not a whole lot of creatures out there that are being played in Commander that will block him at 1 power, because they have to block him with a 0/1, 0/2, something like that. So plant tokens, any of the walls there like 0/4s, 0/8s, those will be able to block him. Granted, there's not a lot of decks that rely on 0/1 plants and 0/4 walls. There are wall decks, but they're kind of few and far between, mostly at casual tables. Now, this is going to be more of a casual build, but even at the casual end of this deck, I believe it can get pricey, and I'll get into why. So the first thing that I thought of when I saw this is you want to be able to up his power. But you gotta be careful about doing that because there's a lot of 2/1s, 2/2s, 2/3s, 3/4s, 4/4s, whatever. There's a lot of bigger creatures out there. But to be able to maximize using him, you kind of want to hit your opponent for more than just 1 damage to draw 1 card. So, how do you go about doing this? So, the easy approach that I decided to take with this deck is more of a Voltron build. So any card to increase his strength is very much needed for this deck, especially if you're wanting to draw more than just 1 card, right? So any of the Sword of series will be really good in this deck. Now, in order for you to take full advantage of this, there are a couple of key cards that I do advise running with him in particular. Starting with Tricks of the Trade. It's a common card, and it's an aura, 3 generic and a blue, enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/+0 and cannot be blocked. So this will override the Skulk, because he cannot be blocked now. And it increases his power to making him a 3/3. So now you're hitting your opponent for 3 points of unblockable commander damage and drawing 3 cards. You probably see where this is going. You want to make sure that you're having cards that will just make him straight up unblockable. So something like Trailblazer's boots. It's an equipment that costs 2 to equip. Equipped creature has non-basic land walk. You're in Commander. How many non-basic lands do you see? Quite a few. Even in monocolored decks, you still see non-basic lands because utility lands are a thing. Now, running something like Steel of the Godhead. It's 2 generic and a hybrid white or blue, so it's 2 and a white or 2 and a blue for an aura that gives, as long as enchanted creature is white, it gets +1/+1 and has lifelink. As long as the enchanted creature is blue, it gets +1/+1 and is unblockable. So with Glim being a blue and a white card, you can run this, throw it on him, and he gets +2/+2 lifelink and unblockable, making him a 4/5 unblockable lifelink, or 3/5, I'm sorry, I can't add today. So a 3/5 unblockable with lifelink, so you're gaining the 3 life and dealing commander damage and unblockable commander damage, and you get to draw 3 cards. This is a pretty good start to get in for what you're trying to do. Now, I was mainly trying to look for auras and equipment and different things like that, but this one I kind of made an exception for. It is a sorcery. Stealth mission, 2 generic and a blue. Put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature you control. That creature cannot be blocked this turn. So effectively making him a 4/5 for the duration, or a 3/5. Wow. A 3/5 for the duration of the entire game, as long as he keeps those +1/+1 counters, and makes him unblockable for a turn. Well, maybe you only need the 3 card draw for that turn, so you can find something to make him officially unblockable throughout the game. A card like Rogue's Passage, this is a utility land that would be great for this deck. Granted, you're in blue-white, so you're running a lot of artifact-based ramp. There's not a lot of land ramp options in blue and white. So the 4 cost activation to make a target creature unblockable this turn might be a little hefty, but if you build your deck properly, this can be mitigated very easily. Muyan Ling was a planeswalker that I just kind of thought of for this deck. It's 4 generic and 2 blue. The +2 makes target creature unblockable. This is pretty costly. You don't necessarily have to run this. I also thought it was just more of a kind of a fun thing. Key to the City. This I figured was both for Vorthos, if you tried to do a Walking Dead theme Vorthos magic deck. Key to the City kind of goes with what Glenn does. Glenn was this sneaky character that could get in and out of places without really being noticed. Was able to navigate the city, especially in the first season. So Key of the City is an artifact for 2 mana that you tap in and discard a card. Up to 1 target creature cannot be blocked this turn, making him unblockable. When Key of the City becomes untapped, you may pay 2 generic mana, and if you do, draw a card. So this can help make him officially unblockable, hit him for a point of damage, you draw a card, and then on your next turn when it untaps, you draw an additional card if you pay the 2. This is a way to gain some card advantage. Granted, you're in blue and white, so you don't need a whole lot of ways to gain card advantage. In this deck, you're mainly looking for ways to make him guaranteed hit, so that way, if you are increasing his power, you're able to get the ability through. You're able to draw cards. Alright, Hot Soup. This is an interesting one. I actually did not know this card existed until I was looking into this. 1 mana for an artifact equipment. It is 3 mana to equip. Equipped creature cannot be blocked. Very simple, right? It does come with the downside. Whenever equipped creature is dealt damage, destroy it. Now, there's not necessarily a lot of burn running around, but just in case, that is something that you might want to look out for. Cloak of Mist is an aura, 1 and a blue. Enchanted creature is unblockable. Aqueous Form I thought was a very interesting one. So it is an aura for 1 blue. Enchanted creature cannot be blocked, and whenever enchanted creature attacks, scry 1. Why not add a little bit more card advantage to his attack? Finally, there's also Ether Tunnel for 1 generic and a blue. Equip enchanted creature gets +1/+0 and cannot be blocked. So, again, this is another card that can very much help you get in for damage. On top of that, you also have Unquestioned Authority. It is an aura for 2 generic and a white. Enchanted creature has protection from creatures. Period. In other words, your opponents can't block, because I don't think there's a way to block a creature without a creature. Unless there's some random card out there that I'm not aware of. Also, whenever that card enters the battlefield, you get to draw a card. Now, that's all fine and dandy, making him unblockable, giving him strength, making him a Voltron creature, but you're in blue-white. Now, what do you typically see in a blue-white commander deck? A lot of Stax effects, a lot of hatebears. So, you don't necessarily have to, but sometimes, especially being in blue-white, you don't have the best ramp, but you do have plenty of ways of slowing down your opponents. So running something like Tomic, Distinguished Advocate, would be beneficial, especially for, lands matter decks. 2 white for a 2/3 flying legendary creature, Human Advisor. Lands on the battlefield and land cards in graveyards cannot be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control. Your opponents cannot play lands from graveyards. So this can kind of help stop people from doing like Crucible of World shenanigans, strip mining you, land destruction decks, any kind of crazy land-based synergies. Hushbringer is another one that could be used. 1 generic and a white for a 1/2 fairy. Has flying and lifelink. Creatures entering the battlefield or dying does not cause abilities to trigger. So again, Blink decks, Aristocrat decks, kind of stops those cards from going off a little bit. Aven Mind Sensor is another one. 2 generic and a white for a 2/1 bird wizard, has flash and flying. If an opponent would search a library, that player searches the top 4 cards of that library instead. So kind of helps mitigate your opponents from searching their libraries and finding the one card that they really need to either win or stop you entirely. Cards like Grand Abolisher, 2 white for a 2/2 human cleric. During your turn, your opponents can't cast spells or activate abilities of artifacts, creatures, or enchantments. Basically, no instant speed shenanigans on your turn, stopping you from doing what you're trying to do. If your opponent's running a very, very dangerous commander or is cheating cards into play, Drannith Magistrate is a really good card to mitigate that a little bit. 1 generic and a white for a 1/3 human wizard. Your opponents can't cast spells from anywhere other than their hands. Yes, this also stops them from playing their commander because the commander comes in from the command zone. These are all just a bunch of different ways that you can help slow down your opponent so you can get to what you're trying to do. Sword of the Animist, once you have unblockable on Glenn, can definitely help. 2 mana to play, 2 to equip. Whenever it attacks, you get a basic land from your deck into play tapped, so it can help ramp you, and gives him +1/+1, making him hit for a little bit more, drawing you a little bit more cards. Umezawa's Jite, just a really good artifact equipment. 2 mana to play, again, 2 mana to equip. When it deals combat damage, when equipped creature deals combat damage, you put 2 charge counters on Umezawa's Jite, not on the creature. Then you can remove a charge counter from Umezawa's Jite and you choose 1. Equipped creature gets +2/+2, making Glenn hit for a lot more damage. Or target creature gets -1, -1, so you can use it as removal or gain 2 life. Most of the time you're using it to either buff up your creature or use it as a removal piece. Champion's Helm, 3 mana to play it. Now, it's an equip cost of 1. Equipped creature gets +2/+2, and as long as the equipped creature is legendary, it has hexproof. That'd be a good way to protect him. Obviously, you want your Swiftfoot boots. Lightning Greaves probably is not the best one for this deck, unless you have ways of buffing him that doesn't target, namely anthems. So you have to be careful about giving him Shroud, which is why, obviously for this deck tech, I decided not to go with Whisper Silk Cloak, even though it makes him unblockable, but it gives him Shroud. Shroud means they can't be targeted by any of your stuff, so you can't put any equipment on him, you can't put any of these auras on him, so you have to be careful about giving him Shroud. Are they bad cards? Absolutely not. It's just when it comes to a Voltron strategy, I feel like people kind of forget that you're doing a lot of targeting on your stuff, so you kind of want to stay away from Shroud as much as you possibly can. Now, obviously you're in blue-white, you have access to a lot of different board wipes. With it being a Voltron strategy, you can always go with Divine Reckoning. Single combat is definitely one. 3 generic and 2 white for a sorcery. Each player chooses a creature or planeswalker they control, then sacrifice the rest. Players cannot cast creature or planeswalker spells until the end of your next turn. So you get a full turn of them not casting creatures, which can be very helpful because then it's a little bit harder for them to build their board, hopefully, depending on what kind of deck they're running. Now, you have ways of making your creature unblockable. You have ways of board wiping and keeping him protected. You have ways of buffing up your creature. But how do you win with this deck? Well, if you have enough planes on the battlefield, there is an aura that costs 4. It's 3 generic and a white for an enchant creature, and enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each planes you control and has flying. You could go that route. There's also Blackblade Reforged, which is 2 mana for a legendary artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each land you control. An equipped legendary creature. So the equip cost is 7, but if you're equipping to a legendary creature, which Glenn, it only costs 3 to equip. So this can also help if you have a way to make him unblockable. You throw the Blackblade Reforged on him, and this can potentially be a win con. Or double tap. Inquisitor's Flail is 2 mana for an artifact equipment and 2 to equip. If equipped creature would deal combat damage, it deals double that damage instead. Note, this does not say double strike. So, there is another equipment, I can't remember it off the top of my head right now, but there is a equipment that will give double strike. There are also auras that can give double strike as well. So if you give him double strike, plus an Inquisitor's Flail, plus buff him, plus make him unblockable, you can single-handedly with Glenn just smack somebody and kill them. Because the double strike with Inquisitor's Flail will stack. That's a way to build this deck, obviously. This is a Voltron strategy, so you're typically going to stick to attacking with one opponent at a time. How do you go about winning? You can knock out one player, sure. But Voltron strategies have this problem sometimes, which is being able to knock out the whole table. You're not in red, so you don't have access to a lot of the additional attack step cards. Aggravated Assault, Response Resurgence. There's a few cards that you could use that some people will deem probably kind of mean, but extra turn spells are officially Blue's way of getting extra combat steps. This is frowned upon by certain playgroups, but they're a part of the game. They are legal. I don't know what to tell you on that one. But playing something like Karn's Temporal Sundering, Temporal Mastery, or is it Temporal Manipulation? There's a whole suit of extra turn spells, Time Warp, Time Stretch, Expropriate, that can give you the win if you have enough extra turn cards. You can kill this person, play an extra turn spell, kill that person, play an extra turn spell, and then kill that person and win the game. It's essentially giving you extra combat steps, but you're doing it in a very cheeky way, kind of, if you think about it, because most of the time your extra combat spells are coming from red. You're in blue and white. You don't have access to red in this deck. But with that being said, you just kind of have to do what you're going to do. You don't necessarily have to go with the Staxy effects, with the small hate bears. You don't have to necessarily go that route, but you are in blue and white, and if you're looking for a way to slow down your opponents from attacking you and knocking you out of the game, Propaganda and Ghostly Prison are very good cards for this deck. You're running enough enchantment-based stuff that you could run a Sphere of Safety, which is basically the same thing as Propaganda and Ghostly Prison, except instead of paying 2, they have to pay X, where X is the number of enchantments you control. These are just different ways. There's probably other ways that you could build this deck. He is a human advisor, although he doesn't necessarily do anything for advisors or humans, besides a little bit of draw power in the command zone. But, I mean, it's kind of an open commander, really. You can just kind of do whatever you want with this. He's just he's okay. He's not the most powerful. He's probably the most powerful one out of all 5 cards from the Secret Lair Walking Dead. But at the same time, he's not the most powerful commander, especially for blue and white. But, I mean, if you want to build a Stax build, instead of running Grand Arbiter in the command zone, you now can run Glenn and be like, oh, this is a fun Glenn deck, and then end up playing a bunch of Stax pieces, and it turns out that's a Grand Arbiter deck. But you don't necessarily have to be that person either. So it's kind of 50-50. It just kind of depends on what you're wanting to do. Do you want to build this as a Vorthos deck? Maybe you want to build this as a blue-white Walking Dead themed Glenn the Pizza Delivery Driver deck. Who knows? Maybe you're building it as a Voltron commander. Maybe you want to build blue-white Stax. Maybe you want to build it as just a hatebear deck. These are all possibilities. And yes, there is a difference between Stax and hatebears. But those are my thoughts. That I kind of went the easy route, making him a Voltron commander. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Are you going to be building Glenn? Are you buying the Secret Lair? If you're going to be and building around Glenn, how do you think that you're probably going to do it? Are you going to go more Vorthos? Are you going to make him Voltron? Or a hidden Stax build? But let me know down in the comments below. Keep it clean, keep it nice. I know there's a lot of feel-bads about the whole concept with the Walking Dead Secret Lair. I'm over it personally. I want my comments section to be kept clean about it. So no hateful comments, no inappropriate comments. I will delete those. Just a heads up. But otherwise, I will see you guys next video.